Word is entrepreneur. Uh, this is just a show that's based wholly on the value we can bring to the audience. Kelly is with us along with Harvey, and everybody knows Kelly and Harvey, hopefully. And if you don't, this is another wonderful opportunity to extend your network and your knowledge share. With that said, today's Labor Day. Want to wish everybody a happy Labor Day in the U.S. And also, that's partly why I decided entrepreneur would be a great word, because in the past, Labor Day usually meant unions, usually meant people working for people. But with the change in the cultures and environments and technology, everybody's an entrepreneur, no matter who writes your paycheck, right? Because you always have to be on the lookout for an opportunity, understand things are going to change pretty quickly. So I think entrepreneurship really lends itself to people who are into discovery, don't mind some self journey, and really with a program like this and opportunities like this can bring teams together to support each other. So, with that said, we're off to a great start with comments. Uh, Before we get into comments, let me share Kelly's viewpoint on entrepreneur and what we can do to benefit our audience.
Yeah. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where y'all are tuning in from. Yeah, again, another great word. And so apropos for today on Labor Day in the US. I initially, of course, had many thoughts about it. And to kind of piggyback on what you were just saying, I think a lot of accidental entrepreneurs occurred following 2020 and or during 2020 and continue. Um, but I think it's interesting because a lot of entrepreneurs, that people that refer to themselves, are they really entrepreneurs? And I say that in the sense of I've worked with some incredible entrepreneurs that are always, 100 steps ahead of everyone else in the pack, and and are visionaries. They're identifying a problem, finding a solution, and implementing it because it's wanted, needed by whomever their target audience is. And honestly, the first thing that comes to mind, and of course can't help myself because tomorrow on the Awesome Journey, we're having a group called the Here Brotherhood, and they're a perfect example of that. They identified a problem, and they've created an innovative solution, and they've implemented it, and it is blown up, like even beyond what they ever thought. Um, but I think to continue in that wheelhouse a little bit is I've also worked with entrepreneurs that are so stuck on their original idea, plan, service, whatever it is, that they don't pivot, that they stay so stuck on the original idea and they're not listening to feedback, whether it's their C suite team, stakeholders, and ultimately customers. Because if you're not listening to them, it's going to flop. Doesn't matter how great you think your idea is, you can't be too married to it in the sense of you've got to be fluid and be able to move along and make changes. I think that's an important component in true entrepreneurship. And then lastly, on this go round, I would say it's also about knowing who to surround yourself with. Um, and Steve Jobs, I think, has a quote, and I can't remember it exactly, but it is something to the effect of, I didn't hire you to tell you how to do your job. I hired you for you to do your job. Because he didn't know everything and he wanted strong people surrounding him. And I think that's such a rare quality, but a needed quality in a true entrepreneur leader. So there's a lot of thoughts to throw over at you, Harvey, who I haven't seen in a while. So it's so good to be with you today.
Yeah, it's great to be with you as well. And you've both said some amazing things there, actually. And the word really resonates with me, perhaps more than any other word, I think. Partly, I think, because I've always been an entrepreneur. Even since I was a little boy, I was always kind of looking. I think it's because when I look at a problem, I look to try and find an answer to it. And I think that's, you said that, Kelly, that, it's about finding a solution to a problem. And I think if you've got a mindset of doing that, if you've got your eyes open. And I like what you said about bringing sort of a collaborative nature to it, because I think being an entrepreneur is seeing things from different perspectives as well.
Mhm.
Because when you come up with an idea, it's perhaps something that somebody else hasn't thought of, or you've thought about it in a different way. So it's a fantastic word. I think my dad was an entrepreneur, and I remember when I was about 7 or 8 years old, building a cart to sell donuts and frying donuts in the kitchen. I mean, I don't think I made a big success of that business, but I just remember as a little kid, and I encourage my children to look for opportunities. So I think it's all it's about trying to see something from that different perspective, and I think when you have, when you've identified a problem and you've got a solution for it, it's what you do with that as well that's part of being an entrepreneur. A lot of people have come up with the ideas before someone else did, but they never did anything with them, and it's their story they tell around the table. I invented that before it was invented, but they didn't take those next steps. And I think it's taking that first step, that can be the bravest one, when it comes out of here, not my hat, but when it comes out of your head and you start doing it. It's just such a great word, and it's lovely to see everybody here. I know Don's going to introduce everybody, but it's lovely to see the comments. I'm going to get on and read some of those now.
Well, sounds great. I mean, Kelly, Harvey, your insights, especially personal insights, are the things that are so important because they're true, they're done, and they've lent themselves to build on. I come from a family of entrepreneurs where nobody worked for anybody, and during that time, you experienced so many highs and lows, right? You got the big deal. You opened up the next store. You did this and everybody celebrated. Then you lost your biggest customer, a storm hit, all because really what I did prior to this is I looked up the definition of entrepreneur. And it says a person who organizes and operates a business or businesses taking on greater than normal financial risk in order to do so. And I think that's the risk reward, that some people have a tolerance and some people have a boredom with, that's all I'm going to make every week is whatever that is. When you're an entrepreneur, if you're making like $700 a week, you can make that in a sale. And then as you're making money for yourself, you're inclined to work a little harder, work a little longer. And the more you work for yourself, the less employable you become to anybody else. Because you ask yourself, why should I have to go through something or somebody to do what I want to do and know I can do right now? Right? Why do I need permission? And who is in that position that I respect enough to take that information and still feel good about myself? So I think, I've always worked for myself because I realized at an early age, because I had to, we were challenged financially, and everybody was working just to keep a roof over everybody's head. And it was just understood, if you want something, you go out and figure out how to get it. Right? Because no one was even going to listen to something like that. And I realized, hey, I could grab a shovel and shovel snow and get a couple quarters, right? I could go mow somebody's lawn. I could go help somebody with their packages, whatever it was. I was always going around the neighborhood. Hey, is there anything you need done? I was a young kid, 8, 9 years old. Most people probably employed me just to give me a quarter and be around me for a while. But at the same time, there was no issue with everybody setting up a lemonade stand, right? That was like so cool. You'd have like a little table, you put a little tablecloth, your mother would make a picture of something, and back then you didn't need parents around you when you were doing that, so it was a whole different environment, but it gave kids an understanding. Hey, you can actually create wealth. You could always take something out of nothing and get a quarter, a dime. And you know what it meant? It meant that when you spent it, you knew what it took to get it.
I was going to say, that's a big teaching you the value of money. I mean, such a gift.
Yeah, and that's why every adversity has a lesson that can be learned to not get in that adversity anymore, but to get beyond that. But to Harvey's point, let's not neglect the best part of the show, which is our audience. Renad Deb's here. So grateful to have you every day. I talk to him. He's a gentleman in India, somebody I would get to know. Listening from Pakistan, great. Anthony's here. Wonderful to join you. So glad to have you. Howard's here. New names, new faces. So great to build our community. Danny's just a favorite from England also. Ola, entrepreneur has, I feel, become a buzzword for I do some business. That doesn't make you an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur is throwing the dice when most wouldn't. I had a partner that became a billionaire, and he could have quit at 100 million. That would have been plenty. He could have quit at 10 million, but there was something beyond the money that challenged him to be everything he thought he could be. And, if you get so good, you can do it again. Mm-hmm. The money is a result of your effort, not a reason for it, and I think that's so important. Catherine is here. Catherine was just tremendous yesterday.
Yes.
Leslie, wonderful, thoughtful, insightful, intelligent person. So happy to have her as part of the group. Good morning. Yes to listening, expanding, pivoting when necessary. Kelly. Dennis is here. I was just listening to Dennis. He was on Leslie's Flowers Mind Over Matter show before this. Great audio. Got to hear Dennis's voice for the first time. Agree in my business about savingheat.com. We say if you're green, you're growing. If you're ripe, you're rotting. Thanks for helping us grow and not being just donuts. Danny says that's the kicker. Entrepreneurs are risk takers. CEO business owners have to manage risk and be fiscally responsible. Being a business owner is not the same. It's literally the opposite of being an entrepreneur. So true. Dennis brings up the old saying is, do what you love and the money will follow. If it doesn't, you still did what you loved. And, you find reasons that money isn't important when you are passionate, when you can't wait to open the door in the morning. I know I couldn't wait for Mondays. It was like a horse in the gate, ready to launch, because that's when things start happening. I remember so many people were dragging themselves into Friday. And if you can't get excited about what you're doing, change what you're doing, change who you're doing it with. And you got to be able to understand it's a team effort. The hardest thing about being an entrepreneur is not only taking a hit, but taking a hit and still motivating everybody around you.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, because they're always looking to you. How are you responding? How are you reacting? And if you always come back, hey, not a problem. We got plan B. We're this, we're that, because it was the belonging. And, at a certain point to get really successful as an entrepreneur, you hire as many unemployable people that you can who are good but couldn't pass the mustard of the employment process, right? So many people were looking at education. They were looking at experience. I was looking at desire. I was looking at how hungry is this person?
Yes.
What is this person willing to do to learn? Right? What is this person willing to be grateful for? Because for that same example at a quarter that you got to shovel an hour's worth of snow for, when someone gives you a chance that nobody has given you a chance, and you deserve it and you're right for it, so it's not just charity, you'll never leave that person. Mm-hmm. That loyalty, especially if you're even better taken care of than you think, right? So with that said, Kelly, we got such a great start. Entrepreneurs turn out to be a winner.
Yeah, I think a super great point. Well, there was many, but one of them that really stood out to me is, yes, a lot of people refer to themselves as entrepreneurs, and it's like, you're not an entrepreneur. You're a consultant, or which is fine. but I do there is a different level, and I think it is that what you hit on with that definition, Dawn, is the financial risk component. Most successful, I shouldn't say most, every successful true entrepreneur that I know has gone on a financial roller coaster in their career where they have lived a portion of their life with no paycheck, have maybe had to start from scratch because they lost everything. And I've always said, like, what a special relationship you have to have with your significant other, your spouse, whomever, because there's not really that sense of security, because it can be a wild roller coaster ride. But man, when they hit, they hit. And it's a wonderful thing to watch because it's so and you do have to be creative, but I don't think every creative is an entrepreneur necessarily, because it does have so many things to do with the people around you, and knowing that you don't achieve those heights alone. And I think another important point, and I think this is what Harvey was saying just before, is oh man, I just now totally lost the thought. That happens sometimes.
It does.
It does. It does. This is real life. So there you have it. Dang it. It was a good one. It'll totally come back to me. I know it will. But in any event, I think, oh, I do know. Came back to me right now. Thank you, God. Is so many people can have so many great ideas and thoughts of innovation to solving a solution. It's the implementation component that is often where people flop. I don't want to say fail. And that happens just in regular business, on the regular. I have seen over my career, many of an organization hire an outside consultant and pay them hundreds of thousands of dollars for a short-term contract to tell them what they already needed, what they already knew that they needed to do in order to go to the next level or scale or whatever it is. But it's like, that wasn't the problem. The problem was true implementation. That's where everything flops. So I think that's another part of the roller coaster ride, truly, with an entrepreneur, because they never stop. It's like, if they get bulldozed over on one, it's like, we're going back to the starting board and starting over, because I'm going to make this happen. Like, they're relentless and resilient in the fact of, I am going to make this happen. They're the ones that work all day, every day, and don't slow down. I mean, so I think that's another component. So thank you for that, Harvey. And I'm so glad that came back to me. So I will toss it back over to you, my friend, because I saw you writing down some notes, which I love so much.
I'm always writing down the notes. Yeah, and the reason I write down the notes is because I can't remember anything at all. I have to walk out of a room, walk back into the room to see what I was trying to remember sometimes. So it's not a problem at all. Yeah, I really, what you just said there, actually, and I'm glad it came back to you, because I think you're absolutely right. I think that there are lots of people who have an idea, but it's the doing it is the hard bit, because that's where you find out whether it works. That's the scary bit, or the fun bit, depending on your mindset. So I think that that's a real key when you're trying to discover how to be an entrepreneur. If you are an entrepreneur, is seeing the idea. Absolutely, that's the creative side. But like you say, not all creatives are entrepreneurs, because you've got a lot of other sides to it. You've then got to action it, and you've got to be able to see great people. Surround yourself with great people is when you're growing. That's what you want to do. You want to surround yourself with people that are better skilled in the areas that you're not, and just nurture them, and then you've got it made. I like the sort of the flexibility nature that a few people have said about being an entrepreneur as well. I think if you're too rigid in your plan, then you've got to be able to change it, if that's the right move. I think also about not making, if it's a business idea, and being an entrepreneur isn't necessarily always, although I think it is, but if it's a business, I think it's not making it about you as well. Make it about the solution that you're offering, because you want it to be scalable and repeatable. And, because all the people that I help on a Sunday, I have conversations sometimes with them about, they're looking for a job, but look for opportunity, however that may arrive, and become entrepreneurs or aim towards becoming entrepreneurs. Because like Don said, why go and work for somebody when you can be that somebody? And then you can help lots of other people. But not everybody can run their own business. Not everyone can be an entrepreneur. I think being an entrepreneur is more about your character and your mindset than being a business owner. I think when you're a business owner, there are elements that you can't do, and you can bring people in. Being an entrepreneur, like Don said about, if something fails, something just goes really badly wrong, and you've still got to walk through that door and carry a positive mindset to the people, because otherwise it's infectious, whatever is happening to the person there. And if you go in with a negative attitude, that's also unfortunately infectious as well, and there'll be a downward spiral. It's such a great word as well, because it combines, this show and the wonderful people here. It combines what I do on a Sunday, helping people who are looking for work, and it combines, hopefully, my new show, whatever that will become, because it's all about being an entrepreneur. And it's going to be some fantastic and really interesting conversations around that subject, and how you can then take something from being an idea to something that is scalable and repeatable. So I'm really, really enjoying the conversation, and it's a great mix.
Well, that's terrific. And what I've only been an entrepreneur. When I got out of school, nobody really wanted me, and the ones who I didn't even want still didn't want me. I was looking, just give me a job, just let me make some money. I just got out of school. And at a certain point, I got so frustrated, it occurred to me, if no one wants me, I'll take me, right? I'll hire myself. And I found a best friend whose dad was in a tool business, was on the road selling tools out of his car even. And I said, why don't we just create a little store, and then he'd have a place to receive stuff, and we'd have a place to sell the stuff. So anyways, I made $50 a week the first year. And that was enough just to get my little car back and forth. I was still living at home. And everybody in the family back then, living in Detroit, you get a job for an auto company in a minute, especially if you had a degree. And they were just, what did you bother going to school for? What, $50 a week, is that, And I heard that. Within a year, I had owned the building, the restaurant next door, was living in a high-rise apartment, brand new car, money in my bank, But it took a year of $50 a week when all my friends were making decent money, and all my family was telling me what a loser I was, And after that experience is, the saying, if it's going to be, it's up to me, right? I'm not waiting. I'm going to take care of this. And it takes me whatever it takes me. The beauty of that is when you receive, now everybody's your friend. Now everybody forgot what they told you a year later, right? and what I learned is what a miracle that in a year you could get smart enough to learn what to do, knowing you didn't know what you were doing when you first walked in. And to Harvey's point about his upcoming show, I mean, I've known Harvey for these 6-7 months, Kelly since January. You can see the evolution by looking at a show 7 months ago or 4 months ago or 2 months ago, and the confidence, the poise, and I think that's what really makes for an entrepreneur is belief. that you can get rid of the dream stealers. You can say $50 a week is a lot of money compared to what this is investing in. Because the mistake entrepreneurs make is they think they're a big shot.
Oh.
You know, when they first open, I own it, I'm the manager, whatever I say goes. You know, and the definition of a big shot is a little shot to keep shooting, right? And that's how you become a big shot. So you learn a lot about yourself. You have a lot of lonely moments. I mean, you got payrolls, you got rents that have to be taken care of. You're the first to pay, the last to get paid, you know. But here's the thing. If you don't want to work for somebody, who wants to work for you?
Yeah.
And I always gave participation, right? If we win, we all win. And then everybody had an interest in every sale. Everybody had an interest that we didn't have shrinkage. So anyways, let's get back to everybody. But before we get back to everybody, let's get back to the new people who have commented.
Yeah.
A big one, Ray. An entrepreneur is an individual who identifies opportunities, takes risks, and creates and manages business or startup venture with the goal of generating profit and creating value. Entrepreneurship is a significant and impactful endeavor for both. And you know, entrepreneurship has been the fastest road for anybody who has been denied opportunities to create their own opportunities. You know, there are more women starting businesses than any other category today, you know, and that makes it fair and equal. And anybody who hasn't got a fair slice of the pie can now cut their own if they're willing to bake it and serve it properly. The entrepreneurs create so many new jobs for different people. This is the big plus point. I mean, that's the key. Innovation, you know, is rampant. And now with social media, you don't have to be a technology genius. You don't have to be an inventor. You just have to be a thought leader. You can be an entrepreneur without going, for sure. And it's what degree? You know, some people are playing it really tight and they don't get themselves in debt. And other people, they go for the home run ball all the time. And there is a joy of stretching, you know, of throwing the ball out there and getting under it before it hits the ground, you know, and you don't think, you just start doing. Ice is here. Haven't seen Ice in a little bit. Hello, respect it all. Beverly comes back with, yes, that's so true, Kelly. You need a spirit for the game. Entrepreneurship is not for everyone. Let's go down here. And John, getting a good mix. A family business ought not to be called an entrepreneur. Yes, and clear board, as Kelly mentioned, it has to be one with blood, sweat, and sincere toil. You know, there's something to the effort because that's why you got the return. You did things other people couldn't or wouldn't do longer than people would put up with. And you got through. And what you have to realize, whatever you did to get there, everybody else has to go through that to get there too. So the more you reach, the more you stretch. And you're the duplicating model for everybody around you, right? You're taking their cues. I remember everything in the business was right down the straight and narrow because I knew if I decided to swerve, they would love to swerve, right? If I didn't make a notation, everything I bought paid for in front of everybody, you know, even though I could have picked it up and walked out and nobody would have said boo, but that's not the point, you know, and that's the key is it's not you, it's how you project through others to make them the best they can be, you know, and be the person they don't expect to see. The person who actually goes on the line or talks to the retail people or the people in the warehouse, takes them to lunch every so often, right? Because then it's equal. And equal is what everybody just wants, an equal shot, an equal playing field, merit and performance. It's so much easier to measure against. I think the idea is the scary part. Absolutely. So many would have been, could have been, whatever, but, something got in the way. So great to see you, Ice. Dennis is agree, teamwork works. Well, you're part of the team too. How much fun is it eating a big, juicy sandwich in front of a bunch of hungry people around you and not even thinking about maybe buying them a sandwich or sharing something? You got to be sincere in what you do and how you do it. Showing is so much more important than telling. Tell me about, Kelly, I'm relentless. Perfect word. My business is my passion. And no, I'm not a workaholic. Entrepreneurship is more than a job. It's a life. I think Beverly makes a tremendous point, because the benefit of entrepreneurship is I never missed anything that I wanted to be at. I never missed a birthday, a little league game, and I would always, and I found how important it was. I made it a company policy, because most people were doing everyday things, right? And if anybody had a big event or someone coming to town needed to pick them up at the airport, hey, take the time off. It never happened that much. But knowing someone trusted you, cared enough about you to say, hey, we can live without you for an afternoon, go see your mother in the hospital, and I would encourage people, and people would tell you things just like this audience, and the whole family would learn it, right? If someone went to visit somebody, how come you're taking off of work? Well, they encourage it, right? And why wouldn't you? People are giving you the best part of their days. They wake up for this, they get prepared for this, and they go sit there 8-9 hours a day. That's enough. That's enough commitment. You don't need everything. Beverly has good luck with the show, Harvey. You got a good tailwind going for you, Harvey. Entrepreneurs are not made. Entrepreneurs can be flexible, inclusive to work on different scales. And as Harvey progresses, as Kelly and Christy progress, as I progress, we all progress. People have to understand there's 970 million people on LinkedIn. Right. If you took everybody I know who does an audio event or a video event, it's still less than 20 I can name, 10 even, right? Mm-hmm. But how much can we soften the market, expand the market? The more people do it, the more people start becoming an audience. We just are honestly so far ahead of the curve. It's like being where everybody's going to be in the next year or two, but not there yet. But the value of that is it gets you better for that time when it does show up. This is rehearsal time. This is practice time. And so what Harvey's saying is anything you do will lend itself to doing something next. And anything you don't do will lend itself to not doing much. I agree, a tool business is a better start than a full business. And I'm not a tool guy. It doesn't happen without belief. So true, Catherine. Dennis, I agree, a miracle can happen if you smartly reflect on your beliefs in a focused mirror. Oh, Kinga's here. Haven't seen Kinga in a while. Hope everything's going well. I know Kinga's been really busy, and she's really prodigious in her writing. So can't wait to see the results of all your quality effort, and reach out to Kinga, connect with her, connect with everybody. It's a great opportunity. And that's one thing about being an entrepreneur. You got to be open. Agree. Taking time off in your own company creates more time with the company you choose. Plus, you're there when you need to be and when you feel good. With that, Kelly, got a great group for a Labor Day.
Yes, and so many thoughts, and one of them being, I just realized I'm sitting with the Tool King and the Prop King. But yeah, so many things. And then one of the things that went back to what you said earlier, Dawn, about hiring a team and the person that's hungry, like that that quality is so much more than just having the skill set. Because I look back on my young career, and when people would say like, God, how did you get the CEO to mentor you? And it was more than one time. It wasn't just like it was one organization that I was in. It was because I was curious and I asked questions, and I loved it because I was fascinated by how an organization operates. How does this department impact this department? And because it's a living, breathing thing, with all the human capital that it entails. And it's just a fascinating thing to observe. And I think another point that you brought up, which is so great about competition. Yes, there is so much room for competition. I do think smart entrepreneurs, CEOs, however you want to categorize that, but we'll stick with entrepreneur for today. You're always aware, though, of your competition. You just want to know what they're doing. What did they do different? Like, wow, they just all of a sudden shot up in revenues. What did they do that happened? That's part of the curiosity, because the bubble is more than what you're doing. you do need to pay attention to what's going on around it, but you shouldn't feel threatened by it. And if you do, you need to go back to the drawing board and start doing some reevaluating of things. Um, so yeah, I think there's so I love all the comments that are coming in today, and you're right. It's great to know that it's a holiday and people are so into it. So with that being said, I will turn it over because Harvey, you do need to plug your new show a little bit. Tell everybody the name and the time, and I'll start off because mine's tomorrow at 1:11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Tuesday.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, in terms of the time and the day, I had to time it very carefully because I didn't want it to affect two wonderful shows that I love very much. Number one, this one, so it's after this one and before your one, because I'm thinking it'll go on between half an hour and an hour, so it'll be done by just after 6 p.m. here or 1 p.m. your time. So the show is at 5:15. And it's going to be starting on Tuesday, the 12th of September. I'm hoping I might have somebody with me, but I didn't know whether I wanted to subject someone to to me practicing. But so it'll either just be me or hopefully a couple of people if they're kind enough.
I think that's what entrepreneurs do. They dive in and just go roll with it. Right.
That's it. But it's going to be really this subject is really what it's about. So it's about what it means to be an entrepreneur. It's going to be called The Franchise Show because that's what I do. And it's going to be about franchisees, franchisors. If you've got a business, how you scale it. You know, all of the things that people go through. I want it to be a real hub, a community of entrepreneurs and aspiring entrepreneurs and great advice and good take homes. So I'm hoping it will be all of that, but there's lots of learnings and mistakes that are going to happen, and it'll all be exciting stuff. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to plug there. You're shameless, but absolutely.
But just for that point, I want to assure Harvey and the audience that what you will get is Harvey, right? An awesome journey. You will get Kelly and Christy, and that's the reason for watching, especially if you're aligned with the topic, right? Yeah. And if you're into business, and I applaud Harvey with niching it because the people who relate to it will be attracted to it. And the people who don't won't be. And that's the audience you want because, a discovery I had about this show is the value of the show is the content of the show. The audience allows us to have this content, but the bigger audience is who watches it after it. Right. And it'll be the content they'll see, not the audience reactions and not how many were in the audience. So it's almost like having a studio audience with a comedy show, right? You might be playing at 200 people, but there's 40 million that will see it when it broadcasts. And I think that's why Harvey has a step up and Kelly, because they've already proven themselves as who they are and how they do things with other people, how they respond. And I think, just like Kelly said, passion is so important. Desire is so important. You're going to get that. So anyways, I'll turn it back to you to help you, Harvey, a little bit more with any other thoughts you might have relating to it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking at some of the comments coming in, which are really good. I think one of the things that I wanted to say is that being an entrepreneur is a strange mix about being single-minded and flexible. I think it's about this. It's a balance of different characters and traits that make good ones, because you have to be single-minded because when things go wrong, you still have to drive yourself forward, but you have to be flexible, and humble. Because you want to be able to listen and really value other people's opinion, because very likely it's going to be better than your original idea. What we can do alone is a lot less than what we can do together, and that's absolutely the way. And I think the other thing to say, just very quickly, you've got me into plugging this show now.
Well,
But
it does relate to entrepreneurship. So
yeah, the other thing that I did want to say is I very much wanted to have the same feel as this show. I love this show. I love being a part of this show and your show, Kelly. And but what Don said there about the quality of the comments coming in, and I get so much value here. You know, for me, it's also going to be a great learning as well, like this show is. And I always feel better after this show, whether I'm sitting here with you all looking at my lovely face or whether I'm adding value in the comments as well. You know, it's a show that makes you feel better. So I want to do my best to do the same. But you will, as Don said, you will get me, and I'm me. Whether you know, when the camera's off or when the camera's on or when you meet me, I'm still the same. So it'll still be me. Whether I can work any props into it, I don't know, but I'll probably will.
Well, here's the other benefit is that everybody gets better wherever they are, whatever they do. They bring that better with them to where they go next and who they're with next, right? And you know what I learned about motivating and promoting people is to give them something to stretch for, right? Give them a reason to keep going. You know, some people are happy wherever they're at, and some people are happy but not satisfied. You know, you could have 20 stores and someone says, isn't 20 enough? And it's like, no, because I'm tired of the same. You know, I mean, entrepreneurs want change. They want risk. They want to say, yeah, I'll put myself out there. And I can't tell you how many times in the early days, especially, I'd assign everything I had for loans. If I didn't pay the loan, the house went, the whole, everything went, right? And come home and tell your wife, well, we lost the business. And by the way, we don't have a house to live in. You know, I mean, that'll keep you working pretty hard, you know? And at the same time, it's the reason you are allowed to succeed, because you can't fail, right? I'm not going to lose my house here, right? Whatever I've got to do, that's not going to happen, you know? And at the same time, now look at all the people, and looking back, because I've been such an entrepreneur, the thing I'm most proud and gratified by is all the people that came through that business in 37 years. And all the educations it paid for, and all the down payments, and all the people who went on to unbelievable careers that are still, you know, I got people in their 20s, now they're in their 40s, right? Or 50s. And now I remember that when they were kids just working in the warehouse or store, and now they're this big shot. And you think maybe I had a little to do with it, but I know how much they had a lot to do with me. And I remember driving in the parking lot, and I'd look for certain cars, right? And if those cars weren't parked, I'd have a bad day. You know, if Judy wasn't here today, or Doug wasn't here. And then there were cars that, hey, if they were gone, I was almost happy to see them gone. But, but that's the thing, you know? And once you get into it, I think, like Harvey says, it's risky until you're used to the environment. Right? How many people do these unbelievable explorations, you know, climbing these unbelievable mountains, and you wonder, I could never do that. And, you know, they learned at a certain age how to do one little thing, and they built on it. So I think give yourself all the credit you can. You know, like I said, I worked a year for $50 a week and took all the ridicule anybody at that age could take. And I pulled through, and I didn't stop. You know, and all of a sudden I was 23 years old, living like a king, where 22, I was a nobody. And nobody was going to give me a job that was going to allow me to do that fast. But let's see, Petra's here. Sorry, guys. No problem, Petra. Whenever you're here, it's a good time to be here. Glad to see you all. ICE comes back with value shared here is very profound. That's what makes our family here so special, because it is from the heart. You know, and we're here not only for you, but for us and for each other. So there's three winners, everybody individually, everybody collectively, and then the knowledge share and the support. And I think that's so key as being an entrepreneur,
Yes.
is who are the friendly voices that tell you, hey, you're on the right road. Don't let no one stop you, or hey, keep going, or just know I'm here if you need something. And sometimes just knowing that is so important. Kelly, what's your
Yeah, that was actually coming to the front of my mind as you were saying that. Is it all comes back to community, right? Because when we feel safe, supported, we're more apt to take a bigger risk, and that is an important factor for an entrepreneur, because you do have to have a community that surrounds you, supports you, because it can be a bumpy ride, but it allows you to feel more comfortable being uncomfortable. And that is part of entrepreneurship. You've got to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I think there's some folks that are in that position. And it's not only that they're comfortable with being uncomfortable, that they love that kind of that unknown drive. Like there's some kind of an adrenaline rush from like, not really sure where this is going to go, and they believe in it. Like the belief never goes away. When the belief is lost and, fear starts to come around, that's usually when things start going sideways. But it's a mindset, right? I think that's what we've been saying this whole show, is entrepreneurship really is about a mindset. So yeah, those are my thoughts right at the moment. Oh, I did want to say one more thing about organizations and giving time off, or knowing when someone's got something going on in their life and going, you know what, just knock out of work a little bit earlier today. I don't know that organizations are that in touch anymore. They're so like, you're in your cube, you do your thing, and you're punching in at 8 a.m. and you're going at 5. Or you're at home, and that personal relationship, which I think is such a bummer, and that's some of what is wrong with the job market in so many ways, is the human connection has been lessened. I don't want to say it's been removed, but I think that is why shows like this and people talking with other people who are truly authentic and genuine and having connections with, I think that's why people are drawn to it and want it, because it's just not, unfortunately, there, I think, in the same way as it used to be, which is a real shame. So those are my thoughts as I toss it back over to you, Harvey.
No, absolutely. No, I completely agree with you. And I was just looking at some of the comments that are coming in here. And there was one I wanted to pick up on. And apologies, because it's going to take me a while.
Oh, look at Ambembola's comment.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yes, no, I will find it in a minute. So you can tell it's live, and I just like read them on. But I did like the point about not becoming a workaholic. I thought that was a really good point to make. I think sometimes people think that they have to be working the whole time. I think it's different to that, because it's not going to work and not being at work. When you're an entrepreneur, it's whenever ideas happen, but also you can create balance in your life. But I think being an entrepreneur is part of that same thing. You don't go to work anymore and come home. You don't forget about work when you finish. You're just constantly, you might be out for dinner and an opportunity arises, or someone might say something to you. It happens to me all of the time, where I'll think of these different ideas. I was with my friends at the weekend, and we were coming up with different ideas. Sometimes you talk them around the table, and you realize that they're not going to work out. But you've got to stay curious, and I like what you said, Kelly, there about staying curious. What's the time?
Oh, we got about 11 minutes time for prop time, I bet.
Prop time. And I noticed Cynthia said, did I miss the prop? Well, I like to surprise you with the prop. You never quite know when the prop's going to arrive.
Drum roll, please.
So I thought very carefully today about what it could be, because there's so many moments in my life where I've had these sort of entrepreneurial moments, and they could be all sorts of different props. But what I've decided to go for, and we're 2 out of 3 are already wearing them, but they're these. They're my glasses. I don't normally wear them because I don't need them to look at things close up. But the reason that I picked glasses is you see out of them. The glasses are designed to be looking out from. So it reminds me that you're looking out for an opportunity. Glasses brings things into focus as well. When things aren't clear, they give clarity. And I think it also reminds me about the fact that sometimes you'll put your glasses on to have a closer look at something. So it reminds me of staying curious. So I think, keep looking out, stay curious and keep that focus. And when you put your glasses on, maybe you'll remember that.
Well, that's a great prop. You always have something to share, and that's part of Harvey. He brings more than himself every time. So appreciated. Carl's here, who was on the show the other day, jumping on the event. So great to see you, Carl. Another wonderful individual, and he has definitely spent his whole life in finance and helping people get funding, but also more importantly, me and Kelly had talked about the advice people need to get the clarity that Harvey was just speaking of. So thank you so much, Carl. Ann Bambola has good news. Hello, everyone. Sarah Malay is co-hosting an event. I have some good news to share. I got a job today and starting my audio room on Thursday. Ann Bambola was here 6-7 months ago. Every day was just absorbing and learning. And then I see her in orbit on so many other shows. And what it says is everybody, no matter where they live, has the same opportunity to share their voice, be seen, and actualize things that they wouldn't even know were dreams until someone brought them to their attention, right? So many people go through the employee door and other people go through the employer door. And there's two doors that open and close equally to anybody who decides to go through them. It's like, do you want the responsibility of someone, or do you want to be responsible to someone, right? Do you want someone giving you direction and paying you what they think you're worth? Or do you want to take on that responsibility without that person, not have a guarantee of what you'll make, but also not have a guarantee of what you won't make? And you'll have job security. One thing about working for yourself, you never get fired. Your only concern is your business doesn't make it. And then everybody goes out the window.
I just realized all this talk of putting on glasses and having focus, and I can't read the comments because these are long distance glasses.
Okay. Well, Petra, that's why everyone needs to connect with podcasts like this one, upcoming podcasts from Harvey and Kelly's. And I think, there's a desire to work with people at certain levels of integrity, certain levels of identification. That's why I only promote the shows I watch and will watch. You know what I mean? And most of the time it's people who are on the show like Leslie and Gretchen has a great show. Actually, Tuesdays, the flight attendant, that I would advocate everybody watch. Symphony, no, you didn't miss the prop. Petra says, stay with people that are encouraging and positive individuals. So true. In 2023, Linda Coleman says, it's amazing to find real people caring and understanding community is so important. We see so many crazy waves in our life now than ever, just like delivery person walking the door package and someone runs up and snatch. It's safety is a big word that's hard to find. And when you find it, embrace it. Petra, that is harder than it looks. Linda said, hey, Jeff, good to see you. Congratulations. So happy for you. All of us are. Catherine comes back with your ultimate mind diet matters. And that's what Catherine's involved in. The thoughts that you choose to think and how you talk to yourself makes the difference. We all have so much knowledge, so much experience. It's great to have formats and venues that you can share it with so many people and give people a menu of choices. The idea is not one or the other, but one and another. You know, this is not, do you like this or that? It's like, if you have time, get as much as you can. This is like university on wheels. Carl Dakin says, Clayton Christensen says you cannot balance work and home. You need to set up two independent but competing plans, one for your business and one for yourself. So true. One thing I learned, when I was home for the home and for the family. And when I was at work, I was there for work and the family, but to support it. And that's when you got to shut off and get back to normal, even though it's not possible. And the other thing in my business, I had all my kids, my son-in-law too, for 8 years working side by side. And I can't tell you what a pleasure that is to work with your son for 8 years every day, go out to lunch with him every day, work with my daughter, who was my right-hand person, and take a walk every afternoon, no matter what it was, for 20, 30 minutes, just to be together. And what I would always hear on weekends is, we're only coming over if you guarantee us you're not going to talk business, you know, because we don't, you know, take a break. Petra says, I agree with you, Jeff Witherspoon, but just think, do you want your energy spent on a positive or a negative? Once you have the freedom, once you smell freedom, you can't go back. It's like growing up and leaving your parents' house, right? It's going to be it would have been hard for me to come back, you know, and not be independent. And people want you to be. Dennis, agree, entrepreneurs will go out for dinner, share, and learn, food for thought, and they become well-bred and fed. That was a double rhymer.
Yeah.
You're getting better too, Dennis. Great props, Cynthia says. Dennis, agree, entrepreneurs who go out for dinner and okay, they become, okay, I think we covered that one. Next one. Okay, Christopher, now Don's hat has other hats that joined today. So wonderful. Don, you're great too, man. Great stuff. Thank you, Christopher. It's always appreciated. Dennis, I mean, these were just rolling in today. Thank you for sharing knowledge on this Labor Day. We got to listen to what you say. You know, and I get to listen to everybody benefits. Congratulations. Petra is being responsible for your own responsibilities and help, not hurt. So true. You know, and actually in my 37 years running my business, no one can ever say I said a foul word to anyone or at any time, right? Because I just was conscious of what an impact it would have. And, you know, we had a business, no one ever left. I had people there for 35 years, 28 years, 32 years, you know, and you couldn't shake them because it was what we're doing here all the time. It was constant. How you doing? How you doing? And it was also everybody working for the team. Someone would come in who would be really bad. It would be like a day or two until everybody would report them and they'd be gone. Right. And I think that, you know, everybody made the environment better for each other. Yeah, maybe so. Okay, we're caught up. With that said, I mean, this has been a fascinating hour, maybe because of Labor Day thoughts, but more importantly, the entrepreneur word and Harvey going out and becoming more entrepreneurial. You know, it's a practice. It's an exercise. And if you don't look at it as a business until it becomes a business, right? You don't have a little horse and then take it to the track and make it run, right? It's going to take a year or two of training and nurturing and seeing if there's something there. And I think in today's world, which is so much easier than it was in the past in some ways, is you can transition to it. You know, before you had to leave a job to start a business, right? You couldn't do any side hustles. There wasn't any internet. I mean, you had to physically go out and sell something or offer something. So I think today, if you can get on shows, learn it, then decide, hey, where do we go next? But more importantly, if you get together with Kelly, Harvey, myself, you're going to get the benefit of everything that flows around us. So just the access and just the proximity will give you insights, and you can take small steps. But the key is never stop moving forward, never stop moving up to the right, you know, and always understanding where your next move you want it to be. You may not be able to afford it yet. You may not know something, but that's where you start filling in the gaps. But more importantly, get on shows like this or any shows, or LinkedIn is meant for professional networking. See who has the ability. Me and Kelly were talking the other day with gentlemen like Carl, who are financial people, Tracy Riley, who's an expert at insurance. Why not bring people on who have specialized knowledge and allow people who have been getting a lot of general benefit now to add some specific elements to it to make it a little bit more comprehensive? And the thing too is, if everybody talks about something you like hearing and you're used to hearing, it does get more interesting when someone talks about something that isn't what you're used to, right? And still encourages you to learn. So with that said, Harvey, been great to have you back. So excited for you. And what's your final thoughts on Entrepreneur and how the show went today?
Oh no, it's been great to be back, and it's lovely to be with everybody, and a great word. I've learned more about what it means to be an entrepreneur than before the show myself. I think my advice for anybody out there, particularly the people that I help on Sunday, and particularly anybody who's looking to start their own opportunity in their own business, is I think the biggest thing is just to keep your eyes open, because the driving force behind being an entrepreneur is the idea you have. You've got to put the right feet in front of yourself, but it's when you're excited about that idea, when you've seen that idea, that's what drives you. Then take it down a peg or two and put things in place. But you're right, Don. We live in a world where it's relatively easy to be an entrepreneur and to find opportunities. We've only got to connect with your show, Don, Kelly's show, and all of the wonderful people here today, see who they're connected with. And suddenly you've got a whole pool of amazing, interesting, wonderful people that you could collaborate with once you get to know someone. I've had many Zoom calls, and I'll keep having them with all the people here, because you learn a lot, and you learn how you can collaborate as well. In the past, when I've had ideas, it's involved lengthy phone calls, or it's involved visits, and sometimes overseas visits. Now we can just do a Zoom call, and if you have an idea, you can accelerate it very quickly. So I think actually it's sometimes because we can do things so quickly, I think ideas accelerate beyond their natural speed. So I think that sometimes when we have the idea, we need to just pause a moment or two and see which way we need to go. But as ever, I'm here to support and to learn myself. And if anyone here needs to reach out to me, then please do, and all be entrepreneurs.
Great, Harvey. Can't tell you enough. Kelly?
Yes, I love that. And just to piggyback on what Harvey was just saying, is we all know that it's, one of the hardest things for us to do as human beings is to ask for help. That is what community is for. And I guarantee you, if you ask anyone that's in this group, if you need something, a connection, that they will do their best to help you. And because that is what this community is. Safe, supporting, do connect with everyone is a friendly reminder. And I will just, and like I always do, is everyone go out on this Labor Day and shine so bright that others can't help but shine too.
Well, I can't tell you what beautiful guests Kelly and Harvey are. I mean, you see it for yourself, but it makes labor a labor of love. When you hear that saying, why did you do that? Well, it was a labor of love. It's something that meant so much to me. I had to do it, right? When they asked Michelangelo, how did he ever sculpt David? And he said, I always saw him inside the block of marble. All I had to do is chip everything away that wasn't him, right? So if you start with your idea, knowing it still needs to be sculpted, and changed, that's the pleasure. The final product is the result. The pleasure is the journey. And when you're working for yourself, you want to memorialize everything you do, right? The first dollar I got in, you put it on the wall, you know, the first this, the first this, the first that. And it actually becomes romantic, right? You fall in love with what you're doing. And now it makes you feel I'm somebody, right? I'm not waiting on anybody. You know, I can do whatever I want, whenever I want, however I want, you know, if I do the right things. That's the key. If it works, I'm on my way. So, anyways, I love the show today, being an entrepreneur all my life and understanding what it is that makes for someone who can keep coming back. You know, Walt Disney, I think, went bankrupt 3 times. And he went bankrupt in the 40s and the 50s when being bankrupt was like awful. You know, it wasn't like here you just signed the papers. And you see any great people, Sam Walton, everybody had to go through it, you know, in order to get through it. And they were happy about it because later on they'd laugh about it. One quick thing, when Walmart opened their first store, and Sam was just a country guy from Arkansas. He owned a Ben Franklin and a coast-to-coast hardware store. That's how he got into it, because they wouldn't let him expand his store. And he had an opening, and he had all these mules, like to give the kids little rides. And then he was giving away all this watermelon. And it turned out it was like 98 degrees that day. And all the mules were pooping, and the watermelon, it was just a total disaster. But looking back, it was fun because you would never know that, right? So, you know, I think take what you got, work with what you have, be whoever you want to be, and allow people to help you help yourself. And I think those will take you a long way. So with that said, come back in 23 hours. Tomorrow, we've got we've got Zen, a new person who was commenting last week with Leslie Flowers. Wednesday, we've got an exciting young lady, Malaya Feivelson and Catherine Chadwick. And then Thursday, we got Kelly coming back with Beverly. And Friday, we got Dr. Marilyn and Dr. Joanne. So full slate. Thank you so much. Can't thank you enough. Take care.